Hi everyone, happy Friday. Angel with Flower City Insurance Agency. Last week we did a video on homeowners insurance and it seemed to have went over pretty well here on Facebook. So I thought I'd do a video on auto insurance. I just wanted to give a brief description of the limits, liability, and optional coverages you have for your car insurance. So let's get started. The liability insurance for bodily injury and property damage protects you and anyone that you have given permission to drive your car if a claim is made against you by another third party, alleging that you were negligent or otherwise at fault in an accident. This coverage will make payments on your behalf in the event that the vehicle was involved in a car accident and resulted in a serious injury or even death and property damage to the third party's vehicle or property. In New York State, the state minimum is $25,000 in bodily injury for any one person, with a $50,000 bodily injury cap for any one accident, and $10,000 in property damage. Those limits are extremely low. So if you were in a car accident and it was a pretty serious car accident and you, let's say, hit a high-end vehicle or a newer vehicle and you caused more than $10,000 in damage to that vehicle, your policy is only going to pay that $10,000 in property damage. So you're leaving yourself open to a possible lawsuit because that person can come after you personally for the difference that from your policy paid out and what the actual damages were to their property. So just keep that in mind when you're shopping around and purchasing a car insurance policy, that you're really knowing what you're purchasing and the liability limits that you have selected, or that the agent has selected for you, or I shouldn't say selected for you because they shouldn't be selecting any coverage for you, should be explaining the importance of why you should carry higher limits. The state minimum again is $25,000 for any single person, with $50,000 cap for any one accident and $10,000 in property damage. You can always request to carry higher limits. I always suggest higher limits, and I like to explain why I suggest those higher limits, just as I did here. Then you have comprehensive coverage, which covers your personal vehicle in the event of anything other than collisions. So it would be fire, theft, vandalism, flooding, hail, driving down the street and a rock hits your windshield, cracks your windshield, even if you hit an animal, all those would be covered under comprehensive. Usually you have a deductible, so you'd have to pay the deductible and the insurance picks up the remaining portion of that. Most policies usually have no deductible on glass, so that should be covered 100%. Double check, because if you do have a deductible on glass, it's usually extremely cheap to not have a deductible on glass for comprehensive coverage. And then you have collision coverage. So if you are hit in an accident, whether you were hit by someone or hit someone else's vehicle, the policy would pay on the collision side of things, and you'd have to cover the deductible. While collision and comprehensive are not required in New York State, they are most of the time required if you lease or finance a vehicle. The bank does require you to carry, or usually requires you to carry, comprehensive and collision coverage on a vehicle that is leased or financed. The bank can also tell you how high your deductible can be. Again, those are only mandatory if the bank tells you that they're mandatory. New York State does not mandate that you carry comprehensive or collision. Other policy limits, or I should say coverages, are uninsured and underinsured motorists. Bodily injury, it pays for medical expenses, lost wages, and other damages when you are hurt in a car accident caused by a driver who is insufficiently covered or has no insurance coverage at all. Pretty scary, right? MedPay is also known as medical payments. It pays for any costs or reasonable necessary medical care that you get in the result of a car accident, regardless of who is at fault. Personal injury protection, otherwise known as PIP, or here in New York State, also called no fault. A lot of people have a misconception of actually what no fault means. No fault is just personal injury protection. It does not cover body repair damage to a vehicle. A lot of people I've actually had ask me about that, and it does not cover it does not cover property damage or repairs to a vehicle. It's just personal injury protection. In New York State, it is mandatory that you have the personal injury protection. It also covers pedestrians if they were hit by your vehicle in New York State. The only time that it would not be covered, or a person would not be covered under the personal injury protection, is if they were driving while intoxicated, causing their own injuries, riding ATV. However, if you hit a pedestrian while you're riding an ATV, that pedestrian is covered under the PIP. Injuries resulting while committing a felony are not covered under PIP. Injuries while a vehicle is known to be stolen are not covered under the personal injury protection. And injuries of the owner of an uninsured vehicle wouldn't have protection under personal injury protection. Again, these are the standard limits and standard coverages here in New York State. If you ever have any questions or want a better explanation on what these coverages do, feel free to reach out to me. I'd be happy to discuss them with you. Again, Angel Flower City Insurance Agency. I hope everyone has a great Friday. Thanks.